The Benjamin Dixon Show is only possible with listener support. Go to www.thebenjamindixonshow.com to register for our blog and join the Progressive Army. And now, ladies and gentlemen,
we are now about to witness the truth.
It's the Benjamin Dixon Show.
Sanders released his racial justice platform. Although Senator Sanders is no longer in the race for president, he, a year ago today, released a very robust, yes. That I was accidentally muted. So apologies to everyone. Okay, so please like and subscribe. Of course, donate to Ben, subscribe to his Patreon, contribute. But I need help, guys. My computer, I've been having computer issues. My computer just absolutely went kerplunk tonight. So I do apologize for the delay this evening. But as I was saying, there is so much that's been going on in the news as usual. But also today was it's been a year since Bernie Sanders released his criminal justice platform. And when you look at presidential candidates and you look at this, well, not criminal justice, but racial justice, we talked about the 5 types of violence, right? It was very robust. And of course arose out of the challenge, the pushback from those coming out of the Black Lives Matter movement, and had input and influence from other individuals that were connected with the campaign as well. And of course, we've seen the past week, the Movement for Black Lives has released a very thorough and comprehensive platform as well. So as we talk about work going forward, Shaun King has had this series that he's been doing about how to address the issue of basically police, reform, abuse, brutality, police killings. And I really think that if we look at these platforms and in the greater context of this overarching work that needs to be done, we can find opportunities for engagement and see where we can continue to move the needle, to do the work that needs to be done. I mentioned Tuesday night on my show in Minneapolis, Minnesota, they actually instituted some new administrative changes internally. The police department did. I don't really know much about the process, if it was driven by, outside community activism, which I surmise is probably, what happened. But, they made adjustments to their use of force policy and some other things that I think we need to look at, that type of model of looking at local level action, right? I talk a lot about local level action. I talk a lot about, community engagement, acting locally, but there's so many organizations and entities out there that have already been trying to do this work, that have been doing this work on their own local level, that our voice, our resources, our nationwide networks can definitely help to further amplify these efforts and endeavors. So today, Shaun had a piece about looking at a strategy that basically meant that we need to go back to the SCOTUS. The Supreme Court needs to basically undo decades of problematic case law that disproportionately impact Black people of color in the criminal justice system. And not just in the criminal justice system, when we look at some of the standards of use of force and things like that, they've come out of case law. That's a huge challenge. And it's definitely something that we are talking about internally, like really digging in and bringing together, leading voices and stuff to further address and discuss that issue. But so I don't know if you haven't seen it, Shaun King has had a series of, I think it's a long series of pieces he's been doing. He's had, I think, about a dozen pieces so far on this topic. And today's piece was basically going through some of the the changes in case law that have led to some of the conditions we now see in the way the legal system treats police officers or behavior and engagement by police officers in the process. So one thing that I mentioned my godmother before. My godmother is a law professor, and she, former criminal defense attorney. She actually handled, she also did civil rights litigation. She actually handled some of the John Burge abuse cases out of Chicago. You know, we had the Baltimore DOJ, scathing DOJ report. I mean, every time the DOJ has to step in with one of these, you know, municipalities, cities, large urban districts, it's always a scathing report. You know, even though there are certain particularities to individual jurisdictions, there are a lot of commonalities and issues across the nation, right? It's almost like there should be some widespread review, but you know that will take a different conversation and a different set of actions to really actually have that in place. But you know, the Chicago DOJ report is still looming after Laquan McDonald's murder and the subsequent cover-up by Rahm Emanuel's office and CPD. You know, the Justice Department stepped in and not only investigated that particular, but they're doing a pattern of practice investigation to Chicago Police Department. One thing that I've learned, like over the past year from looking at all this stuff, was there was actually, a California case, maybe in the early 2000s, that and I need to do some more research. So any of my lawyers out there, you know, if you guys are up for some legal research, and you know, let's pull a group together and get some stuff moving on. But there was actually a case out of California, I think it was in Los Angeles, that looked at the LAPD and using the RICO statutes actually against LAPD. And that actually allows you to go back farther in your investigation than just the regular pattern and practice would. So that's really actually something that's very interesting. So there's a lot of strategies. There's a toolbox. I mentioned it before. I believe it's the ACLU actually has a community toolkit. It's an old handbook, but it's still very useful. It has a lot of really great strategies and stuff. So, you know, I think when we talk about legal strategies and we got to take it back to SCOTUS, you know, that's an old tactic. And it's a tactic we see now used a lot by conservatives, but it definitely is something that was embraced by the civil rights movement. When we look at the accommodation line of cases, when we look at the housing cases, you know, cases that led to desegregating housing, like CHA versus Gautreaux and CHA versus HUD, for example. I'm not CHA versus HUD. Gautreaux v. CHA and Gautreaux v. HUD. Those were litigated by my former senior counsel, Alexander Polikoff. So there's a lot of strategies out there, and we really need to start looking, instead of looking at for the magical strategy to alleviate this issue, we need to look at combinations of things, right? Because there's a lot of really great activism. People are driving conversations. People are getting changes made at local levels. People are getting conversations started and continued. But, you know, a legal strategy is awesome too, but the legal strategy alone is not going to be the end all be all. Like our senior producer here at Benjamin Dixon Show, Progressive Army, posed the question earlier today, you know, what is the difference between the civil rights movement and now? I think that is a really good question. And I think that we do need to reflect. You know, if you guys haven't seen my interview with Michon LeBron about his one-man show Power, looking at the summer of '66 with Stokely Carmichael, you should definitely check that out. Because there's so much that, even though there's new issues on the table, there's new players, there's a new environment to some extent. At the same time, a lot of the issues, a lot of the games that are being played, a lot of the power plays that are being made are repeats of action that has already taken place, you know? So it is worthwhile to look back, to kind of review and ascertain like what worked, what didn't work, and if there are differences between now and then, right? So these are ongoing conversations we're going to start having here with the Progressive Army. I can't necessarily speak for Ben's show specifically, but I'm sure this is the type of thing that Ben would definitely want to continue discussing. So that was just something that I saw from earlier today. And I really do think that I just saw a headline about a 14-year-old young man that was murdered out in California by the police. You know, it gets to the point where, you know, I mean, we can't just keep saying, well, if only someone, we cannot tolerate the conversation and discourse to continue the way it has gone. in terms of so-called leadership, in terms of, you know, law enforcement entities. The statement from BPD, from from the Baltimore Police Department. I'm gonna say Baltimore Police Department or Baltimore PD because, you know, we have our BPD. Don't want to confuse us too, but the statement is childish and lacks any type of accountability and responsibility for actions taken. Interesting note, right? Like, so for a period of this time that was investigated by the Justice Department, Bratton, who is stepping down as the head honcho in New York, was some super high paid consultant. We see a lot of times with these police departments, you might, you know, dismiss someone from one city and they end up being hired by another city, right? Or we might have issues in one place and then that person pops up someplace else, or they're acting as some type of private consultant or whatever. So basically, they've been spreading around these problematic, you know, actions, standpoints, evaluation methods, training, you know, all this stuff gets spread around and there's no accountability. Everyone's like, oh, well, you know, we're going to try next time. How can we trust people who broke the system to fix the system? So this is definitely something we're gonna dig deeper into. You know, I mean, we should definitely be reaching out to people like Liz Brown. You know, if you guys are on Twitter, check out Liz Brown. Liz has this brilliant Liz Unpacked moment. There's a lot of people, but one thing, like I was saying with my godmother, she's done innocence. She runs the Innocence Project at her school. She's done a lot of work in this area. We've talked about how a national, trying to get federal intervention, federal laws, SCOTUS strategy, that type of stuff, it's very difficult, it's very tedious, and that's a very long-term process to really undo what needs to be done. Not saying that we shouldn't do it, but, you know, we got to keep that in mind, right? We shouldn't put all our eggs in one basket. You know, we need to also consider the opportunity on local level, because this is a topic, just like with education, where local absolutely matters. There's so much work that can be done addressing city councils, mayoral offices, dealing with the police departments themselves. Like I said, in Minneapolis, Minnesota, we'll see how that actually works. There's actually some really great activism in and around Minneapolis as well. But the opportunity to address administrative changes, you know, that's immediate. You know, if police departments change their policies and make it, for example, you know, impermissible to refuse medical treatment, that's immediate. That's punishable. That's like right there. So we need to look at all the different possible strategies and stuff going on. But that was just something I was on my mind from some conversations we had earlier. And it's definitely pressing because we continue to have these issues and incidences, right? We continue to have the police officer that shot the therapist down in Florida, who they said that it was an accident. They shot him because they was really trying to shoot his autistic patient. That guy's not going to be charged because it was a miscommunication. It was a miscommunication when you admitted that you were actually going to shoot his autistic patient instead. I mean, there are so many things that go on that we need to address. So that was just something, like I said, I wanted to just talk to you about. So we have I'm gonna turn to some international news for a little bit. Well, no. Yeah, I'm gonna turn to just real quickly some international news because this all ties in. Rio. I love Rio. Rio is I did stay in a very nice area when I was in Rio, but I love Rio. I love the energy. I love Brazil, period. I love the energy of the people. I love the resilience. It's awesome. I think we might have a caller coming in, but I'm not sure. So I'll keep talking until I get. But I think that what's going on with the Olympics, you know, yay, Team USA is doing awesome. That's so wonderful. I'm sure you guys have seen pictures of just the disparity, right? Rio is one of those cities where you see the stark disparity. Oh, I do have a caller. I thought so. Caller, you're on the air. What is your name and where you're calling from?
You know what? This is Umar from Brooklyn.
Hey, Umar, how are you doing?
I'm fine. I'm glad, didn't catch the very beginning, but, glad to see you up and on. And I wanted to speak to your
Awesome.
point, some of the points you were making in the beginning about all the things that basically need to be done.
Mm-hmm.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, well, all right. A couple of things I want to point out that I think that one of the things that happened with Bernie is a shift towards all the movements realizing that, and all the people beginning to realize that there's so many things that need to be done than what they did in a hot minute. Because, I agree, there's a lot that needs to be done, but when you get that quick flash, in our community, you call it when you first get conscious, that phrasing, suddenly you got that anger and you just want to do something. And then, as you watch and see how things go, you form out. And you guys,
Right.
Benjamin Dixon, Tim Black, Saint Progressive, I'm blanking on the other shows, and Black Lives Matter, even the shift towards the younger feminist movement realizing that the way intersectionality was being handled is not right, and they're trying to, in their own way,
Right.
trying to change it. But that's what's important about keeping the good movement going. Because I was reading an article watching, it was on Fusion. Fusion has a video where someone was talking about how this is coming together, or maybe it was Big Think, that suddenly the movement as is that, and I have to say Bernie Sanders is one of the biggest proponents of making this happen. So it's just that from my observation, I said, be it hard. I'm seeing the movement shift towards understanding there's a lot that needs to be done, and everybody's trying to find that thing they need to do. And I'm going to leave it at that, because I think you guys are doing a great job. Whether I agree with everything you say or not, you're doing an awesome job.
I appreciate you, Omar. Thank you for calling in. Okay, so those are great points, and I really do appreciate the feedback and calling in. And actually, I think I'm gonna press pause for a moment, and I think I have another call coming in, and I think this actually might be one of our Progressive Army writers. So it's not necessarily unrelated what's going to happen. So actually, so just about just because I do think, because I can see, if you guys are keeping phone, like, I'm not psychic or anything, but like the Skype, like how we take calls, it's popping up on my phone, so I can kind of see it, I think, when they're trying to come through. But anyway, so this is independent journalism, right? I mean, we try and do it the best way we can and bring you good content and, not go bankrupt in the process. But in Rio right now, there is, the opulence, the great races, and yay, Team USA. But we have some, not just, and it's been kind of constant since the ousting or attempted, coup, basically, right? There's been different uprising protests, people really taking, things into their own hands. But one thing that I saw that was interesting earlier was that teachers, see if I can find exactly what it was, because I had the exact quote earlier. But basically, teachers and students took over. They took space. They infiltrated space, during the Olympics, and because so many were displaced and so many have been, pushed out. There are resources that have not been used in the country, in the communities, that have been put towards the Olympics. There have been all these issues and stuff, right? So I thought that this was really like a powerful piece. And see, look how, you see how it is? I mean, that never happens. And I'm so sorry. That's just like it's really like, but anyway, here we are. Camera's okay now. But yeah. So Michael Graham, actually, I can't find the piece that I was going to talk about. And then the camera fell, so that kind of threw me off a little bit. But I appreciate you guys for hanging in there with me. But Michael Graham is coming through to talk a little bit about a piece that he just wrote this week about basically a tale of two women. I mean, we had, and last week I talked about a tale of two conventions, and this week we're going to talk about a tale of two women. Looking at basically the differences between Debbie Wasserman Schultz and Nina Turner, and the DNC convention, and how that all worked out.
All right. Hey sis, how you doing?
Hey, I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. Glad to be talking to you on the. I guess we're in the big leagues now, huh?
Yes, I know. I'm in the big leagues, and then my computer and my camera is messed up tonight, but that's okay. Don't hold it against us. You know what I'm saying? We are a work in progress, and we appreciate you sticking with us. So let's talk about your piece.
All right. Well, you and I have talked back channel about this a little bit before, but this is something that's been kind of weighing on me, because watching how Nina was treated after she was such an upstanding citizen. I mean, she was everything that we asked people to be, especially black women, right? Black women are always told, you need to be this, 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 and this, and then be twice as good as that, and then here she is doing all that, and she gets cast into the darkness, and Debbie Wasserman Schultz, who's been cheating the system from day one, gets a cushy landing, right? And that just struck me as extremely unfair, and after the DNC leaks, these two women are basically the number two women on the two opposing tickets, right? You realize that, after Jane Sanders, the most visible face on Bernie's side was Nina. And on the other side, the one working hardest after Hillary herself was Debbie Wasserman Schultz. Now that we know the truth, I mean, we all knew it, but now that it's out there, and these two women were treated entirely different. And I didn't even have to mention the race thing. The picture was enough, right? You see how these women were treated, and we hear all this talk about how intersectional and how wonderful the Hillary campaign is to the Clintons are in general to black people. But this should be, you should let if you don't toe the line, you're cast aside. Right. I understand playing team ball, but this was really ridiculous.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, one of the things that I noticed that really caught my attention about that whole week and how she was treated was, earlier on, I think that was Tuesday when she wasn't allowed to speak, but on Monday, I believe it was, she and Lucy Flores and several others had actually participated in like a woman of color, like speak out luncheon. And one of the things that we're talking about, and Nina has continued to hold up people, even though again, if you listen to Nina Turner, if you follow her on Twitter, she doesn't go negative. She doesn't do that stuff, but she also will lift people up despite how, the differences in terms of ideology or whether they're on the same side, like, especially during the primary process, she would say, like, I have my sisters and there are people who we don't support the same candidate. We're not supportive, but we're sisters and I still support you because I'm about you. And so she gave this speech during this luncheon, some remarks. And, they were talking about how they need to, we need to make sure we're valued and supported as women of color within the party. And she just went on. And she transcends the Bernie Sanders campaign, right?
Absolutely.
Like we look at what happened with Donna Edwards, because when she didn't toe the line in her primary, right? She dared to go against the establishment and run, and they came back and smacked her back. I mean, so it really bothered me when we looked at someone like a Nina Turner being treated the way she was, and then you had Debbie Wasserman Schultz that has done all the things that she has done, the hubris, the arrogance, it's just ridiculousness, and how initially they were still going to let her, gavel in. The stark comparison was just it was dismaying.
Yeah, it was. Unfortunately, I couldn't go to the DNC, and it was just so blatant. That was the problem for me. It was so blatant. It was so in your face. Even though I'm watching all these Hillary devotees, just ignoring that. It's one thing to say, okay, this is a big tent, and all voices are welcome. But if you don't toe the line, not all that welcome. And I get it to a degree. That's how power works, right? You are given access based upon how deeply you bow, right? And I get that. I understand that. We watched we watched a whole lot of people scraping and bow. I'm not going to get into name calling, but I mean, we watched this happen over and over again. And here's this strong woman, upright, who is doing what she believes is correct, following her heart, and getting on the love train. and she did nothing wrong. I mean, she didn't get into the name calling. She didn't get into the muckraking. She stayed above it all the entire time. And this is how you treat people like that. These are the people you need on your team. These are the people you know you can trust when things get bad. There's only so many snakes you can fit on a plane. You know what I mean? You can need
especially if there's any real concern about bringing us into the fold, right, so to speak. Not saying that we would follow Nina Turner, but being gracious in those moments. And we've talked about this about the DNC overall. Like I talked about it with one of my friends who was the California delegate. We talked about how just the way people acted and behaved, they're like, once the cameras went off, there was a nastiness, there was a cattiness.
Yeah,
it was very inhospitable. And we definitely saw that in the way Nina Turner was treated. Like that was obvious. Regardless of whether she supported the candidate or not, we're talking about this as a moment to bring unity together. She is someone that engages and invigorates and brings out the best in everyone. So to deny her opportunity and space to crush her voice, it was more symbolic, of the way, that machine handles stuff. I mean, we are a tool. They love to tout about how Black people love Hillary Clinton and we all support her. Well, I mean, as long as you toe the line, as long as you're doing what massa wants you to do, then you're all good. Stray, exactly. And then there's a problem. We saw what happened to Jocelyn Elders. So I'm sure there are people on that side. I know a lot of very smart, very kind people on the Hillary side. I get that. Yes. But at the same time, we can't ignore things like this, signals like this. I mean, like today, that Brock is taking over Crew. It's stuff like that. We're watching the propaganda wing get built before our eyes. And these are scary times. I get the fact that, the clear and present danger may be Trump. I get that. But if you look closely at what's the machinations and what's going on with Hillary and company, it should concern you. It should really concern you. And it seems like, the fear has I've been going back and forth with some dude on Twitter today. The fear of this guy, it's just coming off him. I'm like, listen, take a deep breath. All right. Make good decisions, right? Fear and love make you make the stupidest decisions in life. Right. And this fear thing is driving people crazy. It is absolutely crazy out here. You and I have both been in battles with quote unquote friends about this whole Bernie Hillary thing. And it seems like we're the ones accused of being the venomous ones. But if anybody taking a step back needs to take a good look at what's going on, and this is getting, I don't know. It's like, it's becoming cultish what they accused us of being, right? Yeah, exactly. It's also like this notion that they have a moral imperative, so they're absolutely right no matter what. And again, like you said, even if the fear of Trump is a valid fear, at the same time, that does not mean that suddenly we excuse all the other bad behavior that's going on just because the other side is bad. Like what are we setting ourselves? Okay, let's say Trump is bad and we all fall in line and we disregard everything. None of us, we all get silent. What happens on day one, right? Trump is defeated, right? The bad is the evil. We're just assuming, right? Let's play make believe. Trump is defeated. The bad thing is all gone. It's like kumbaya. We won. We're victorious. Peace on earth. What do we do on day one? Because now we've allowed this monster to exist. We have this other problem, right? We have all this unchecked cronyism, all this unchecked corruption that is just going on in the name of defeating Trump. Then what do we do? What do we do? That's a big question. We're supposed to just accept it because that's the penance we pay for Trump being elected on the right? That doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, it doesn't. And, we heard all this, when it was Bernie and Hillary in the race, we heard all this. What are you going to do in the first 100 days? What does your agenda look like? So how do you make the Republicans work with you? All the same questions can be asked of Hillary, but when you ask those questions, you don't get any solid answers, right? I'm just as American as the next guy. I've served, I've done my part. I question. I reserve the right to question any candidate under any circumstances, right? So a candidate with this type of baggage and this type of history, and it doesn't make sense not to question her and keep the pressure on. And everybody just running and lining up doesn't make sense. I mean, we saw today what happened with Lee Fang and The Intercept. The FEC is answering some questions now because The Intercept stayed on folks and kept pushing. This doesn't happen if everybody gets in line. And that to me speaks volumes. And bravo to The Intercept.
Right, definitely. Yeah. Well, I need to. Because I can't keep David for too long tonight, but I appreciate you for coming on as always. I mean, everybody definitely check out Michael Graham on Twitter. Check out his latest piece, and then also go check out the rest of our writers over on progressivearmy.com. Again, we have a slew of phenomenal people who are writing, and
Absolutely.
I mean, very well researched, detailed stuff. I mean, we're not quite The Intercept, but we making waves over here. So
we're making waves. We're not funded
always
like
great to talk to you.
We ain't like that. All right, sis. You have a good evening, and I hope everybody out there in internet land has a good evening too.
All right, talk to you later. Yeah, so definitely check out Michael Graham's piece. It was a very good piece. I mean, he has several really great pieces up, and I don't say that just because I consider him my brother, my friend, but I'm pretty proud to stand by everything that goes up on Progressive Army, our process and the way we do things. That actually leads into the thing I want to talk about next with journalistic integrity. With journalistic integrity, I think we just put the piece up on the screen, so you can go check it out on progressivearmy.com. Tale of Two Democratic Women. Really great piece, and I continue to say, no matter what, I'm with Nina. She has yet to steer me wrong. So, but this leads kind of into this notion of journalistic integrity. We do see this propaganda machine being built by the left. We've complained about the way news and media is handled by conservatives, by the right wing, but the left has this amnesia about just basic rules of decency in the investigative process. We have newscasters who leave out pertinent facts when they reveal information, when they recount, studies and other findings. We as we've now kind of tails back into Rio. Today, the Daily Beast, apparently one of the Daily Beast writers, I mean, it's not even just that it was sleazy. It was reckless indifference for life of others. So for those of you who may not be aware, one of the writers for the Daily Beast, who's there in Rio. He is a straight male, cis male. He is married. He has children. And he decided that he was going to go on a dating or hookup app. I guess something the young folks do, because I don't really know much about any of this stuff. But he posed as someone looking to hook up with other men. Why would somebody do that? Right? I don't know if any of you watched the show Catfish, but basically this is like some weird catfishing in a way. So he put himself out there to see if anybody wanted to hook up, basically is what happened. And he got some bites, so to speak, right? So he people wanted to meet up or whatever. And I guess when he finally met up with them, he then explained what he was doing. But by then he had already basically identified Olympic athletes. These are Olympic athletes. These aren't just people who are spectators at Rio. These are actual athletes, because he wanted to look at the underbelly of the party scene and the hookups or whatever. He was doing some investigative journalism. No, it was more like sleazy tabloid, just crap. And what in this process, we have the Olympics, you have athletes from all over the world. So he encountered in some way, and some of these people he encountered were, I think one person was as young as 18. I'm trying to think of his name, but there's a swimmer from Tonga who's openly gay athlete at the Olympics. And so the point that has been made time and time over again is, one, not only did you out people for the purpose of your story, because what happens is when he writes his story, right, there was information about these individuals that was put in there that made it possible that you could figure out their identities. That was in the initial version of the story that was released. The story has since been edited to remove that information out, and there's an editor's note trying to like kind of smooth the situation over. The piece needs to come down. The piece absolutely needs to just come down all the way. Daily Beast needs to not only like retract that, they need to apologize for that BS editor's note apology, whatever, because we would never do anything that appear to be homophobic. You have a straight man pretending to be gay on a dating hookup app or whatever it is, Grindr, whatever it is. I'm showing my age a little bit here because, you know, I don't do any of that swipe left, swipe right stuff. I don't know nothing about that. But you have someone for the purpose of the story, because there's nothing else that's actually newsworthy happening in Rio, that they have to fabricate some type of sensational scandal, such as who's really hooking up and who's on a down low, or who's in the closet, or who's not out. Like, that's how dare you? Who the hell are you to decide to not only, you know, invade someone's personal privacy like that, their intimate portions of their lives? Like, who the hell are you? And then you want to say we didn't mean to be homophobic? You outed people. Like, what the hell is wrong with you? For what? Some damn clicks on your little cheap retarded ass website? Like, the Daily Beast already has problems, right? The Daily Beast has egged on all that Bernie bro nonsense and so many other false narratives. But this is like a new damn low. This is so low. It is so beneath anything that's supposedly called journalism. And then to put that piece of crap, you know, statement, editor's note, apologizing or clarifying or justifying, like, well, he's sorry and he didn't mean this be the way. The hell is wrong with you? These are the same people who will lecture us about intersectionality and how we don't understand, you know, privilege is a mother, like, for real. For you to sit there and to basically entrap people, to trick them, to lure them into revealing intimate secrets about themselves, things that they don't want other people to know, things that depend upon what country they come from, could cost them more than just accolades and prestige, but in some countries it can cost you your life. Like, this is a very real, you know, we have so many countries in the world that are so very hostile to people who are who identify as LGBTQ. For you to do what was done and as I'm trying to remember his name, the Tongan swimmer, as he pointed out, you know, in a series of tweets, you know, I'm trying to be good in the language. I'm trying not to use foul language because I really want to, but as he pointed out, one of the people that were, you know, approached by this, I'm not even gonna call him a writer. He's not a journalist. You know, he's a con artist. You know, he's a shit starter. Was 18 years old. And it don't matter, but when you're 18 years old, like, you're already so unsure of yourself. You're getting out in the world for the first time, really. Like, you don't want to let your parents down. You know, you're really just trying to figure out who you are. Then you add, you know, sexual orientation and possibly being from a country, from a family, from a culture that does not even accept you. When you add those layers on top of just being a regular 18-year-old, and you're in a high stakes situation anyway, because you're at the freaking Olympics, like, what the hell is wrong with people? But it's okay, because he didn't mean to be homophobic, and he was just trying to write a piece about the inner, you know, the private lives, you know, the mating behaviors of Olympic athletes. Like, what the hell are they? You ain't no damn Jane Goodall, and they are not gorillas for you to be studying. Like, this ain't no zoo. Like, for real, like it's just so disgusting. When I first read this story earlier today, because I actually read one of the articles from Slate. I'm sure writers over at Slate have been having a field day, because I've seen like 2 or 3 different pieces by Slate folks about this Daily Beast piece. And what makes this Daily Beast piece, as someone pointed out earlier, so bad. I want to say it might have been Awesome Lovey on Twitter. So bad is that it's not like this was just an op-ed that somebody just uploaded on their own and nobody looked at. This is an actual staffer who more than likely had an editor edit the piece before it was published, right? Like when I wrote my op-ed for The Guardian, I worked with an editor before it was even published. Somebody else looks at this piece, at least one person, if not multiple people. That's what's so problematic as a whole. So you got this one scallywag who wrote the piece, right? Who was tricking people, who out there exposing folks' personal business. Then you got whatever staffers at the Daily Beast that looked at this piece like, oh yeah, this gonna get us some clicks today. All y'all need to go straight to hell. Because this is low. You are, or is the intimate details of someone else's life. It's the fact that you not only potentially could have endangered people's family relationships, you could have endangered their lives, their livelihood, and for what? Like what purpose does it does? Oh, now you done figured out, who might, who might fit into a certain category versus what you assume they did. I mean, that's a very personal decision to share with the world. Even for people who may not have concerns or the scare of, whether or not my family will accept me, will my culture, will my country, like, even if that's not what it is, it's, and I'm not even, like, I'm outraged. I'm just outraged as a sister, of I have a trans sibling. Like, I'm just outraged on so many different levels. Because, I had a friend, I was talking to a friend earlier, like, well, why does it bother you though? So like, why does it bother you? So, okay, so like the author of the article, right? Like for the record, I didn't lie to anyone or pretend to be someone I wasn't, unless you count being a Grindr in the first place, since I'm straight with a wife and child. If it's an app that is for people to use to meet same-sex potential partners, mates, friends, whatever the terminology is, and you're on there, why would someone, and it wasn't even pointed out, it wasn't even that he had put in his bio or in the messages that he was a journalist and he was doing a story, right? He did not disclose who he was until like once he actually met them and found out who these people are. And then John Avalon, who's Daily Beast editor-in-chief, wrote in his note, like, there was some concern that the original version of the story might out gay male athletes, even by implication, or compromise their safety. This was never our reporter's intention, of course. Huh? Who the hell is buying that? I hope they all get together and sue y'all asses and you have to shut down. Like, seriously, this was never our intent to compromise people's identity. Because like I said, the original story had so much detail about people, right? It wasn't just a general overview of like the use of this app and blah, blah, blah. Like, it had specifics. I mean, and even like doing a story about a general overview, that's bad enough. But then you put in specifics about people. You're putting in people's personal business. You're putting people in danger. Like, you're invading privacy for what? For entertainment value? Like, it's sick. We have our American culture is already so sick. We already have, like, we've seen so many years now with the paparazzi attacking people and like chasing down famous people and stuff like that. And you got these athletes over there just trying to, win one from the home team, do their best, make a name for themselves. And you got schmucks like this running around. Let me see who I can trick into doing something so I can write a story for my little crap-tastic paper, the Daily Beast. They say that some readers have read Nico as mocking or sex shaming those on Grindr. With this anyway. However, the Daily Beast understands that others may have interpreted this piece differently. So like I said, people read this. This is what's so much more problematic, because the piece, when you read the piece as it is now, it is still disgusting. it is still so problematic, and it still makes me want to punch somebody, right? The fact that that is the toned down and more edited version, because again, it goes through an editor before it's even published. Somebody sees that. They see that. They knew what he was going to do, and they still let that stuff go through. What the hell happened to journalistic integrity? I mean, we have spent so many years degrading things like Fox, like particularly Fox News, right? It seems like that is now becoming the standard for quote unquote journalism within mainstream mediums. And that's a problem. And when I saw this earlier today, like as a mother, like I said, as a sister, as a friend, as a freaking human being, it was disgusting. It was absolutely disgusting. You know, there was a post about someone said publishing an article that in any way could be seen as homophobic is contrary to our mission. What was the mission then? This is the type of stupidity that we need to be calling out. We can't just say, oh, they made a mistake. People don't get let off the hook because they don't learn lessons when you let them off the hook. You know, we have seen the erosion of character, of good judgment, of real news telling over the last several years, and particularly in this election cycle, right? And we've seen it from an outlet like the Daily Beast, which is just absolute trash. It's absolute trash. I ignore the Daily Beast anyway, but this, like today, you know, it just has me. It's trash. It is trash. It is disgusting. And when you have people who claim to be quote unquote allies, this is another reason why I don't like the term allies. I don't like the term allies because allies doesn't necessarily require absolute loyalty. Allies are in it for their own personal benefit to some extent. You know, we need people to be comrades. We need people to be co-conspirators in things. Because if the staff at the Daily Beast were in this, you know, for real, they really gave a damn about folks, they really cared about not appearing to be homophobic, they wouldn't have let that trash run. You know, Nico would be sat down and had a good talking to about that piece. I'm sure he probably pitched that piece to somebody before he even did it. Like you that bored, son? I mean, you got protests. You got real stuff going on in Rio right now if you really need a juicy story to talk about, right? But this is what you decide to do. It's disgusting. And I think that this is why the writing team, we have Progressive Army, you know, Michael Graham, Salam Marcos, Michael Solomon, Goddess Pamela. I mean, we got so many folks that work and grind and write for us and engage. You know, this is why we build up alternatives to what is mainstream garbage like the Daily Beast. I mean, it's sensationalism, it's scandalous, it's trash. And this is just a real example of the disconnect that these so-called, you know, liberals who have spent so much time deriding us for not, you know, having certain insights, for being racist or sexist or whatever. I mean, and then to say, well, ha 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 ha, you know, I didn't mean to trick anybody. I just kind of happened to. Then I wrote an article about it and put in people's personal details and some of what they were looking for, because the article describes, like, you know, people's hookup preferences. I mean, it describes real personal, intimate details. It's trash. It's absolute trash. And it's really disgusting that this is from a so-called journalist. So like that, like I said, as a mom, as a sister, it really disturbed me. And we continue to have so-called people, liberals, you know, progressives, people on the left, whatever they want to call themselves, who, and some of these people involved with the Daily Beast, I'm not going to name any names, people who support the Daily Beast are some of those we are the left knuckleheads as well, right? There's so many issues. There's so many lapses in judgment that are going on right now. And we do need to continue to call people out when we see bad behavior happening, because this is how we really begin to change the tide. and not just temporarily and not just for a certain group. So we're going to go a little bit longer. We're going to go 10 minutes since I had a little technical difficulties in the beginning. Yay. 10 more minutes with me. Aren't you excited? But just want to turn back to, some more of the news and stuff. Something else that caught my eye that happened today was in Chicago, kind of going back to some of the police brutality cases. I mean, because there's so many different levels of issues. So we do have the ongoing, the prosecution is going on now with the cop involved in the Laquan. His counsel wanted access to Laquan's juvenile records. And, rightfully so, the judge she needed for her defense. What exactly in his from before that incident would give you information for your defense when your client shot him in the back, shot him while he was on the ground, and continued to shoot? When your client and others tampered with evidence and lied about the whole thing. Like, why would you need his juvenile? Like, it just seems like we have this, and we see this happen so often, right? With the way the media even depicts these cases, we have the victims, the murdered, made out to be the villain. We have their character is completely assassinated from the beginning in an attempt to save and justify the behavior of the police officers. When in fact, if this were a regular trial, that, if not just the news media putting somebody on trial, the news media, destroying the character, the integrity of the deceased, this information would not be, it would not be relevant at all. We've seen this time and time again. When people are murdered by the police, the media they dig out whatever, little tidbits about them, whatever detrimental or bad things they can find about them. And they're putting it out there as if somehow it justifies what happened in that instance. Because here's the thing, right? When you're looking at what is reasonable, when you're looking at the behavior of the cops involved, they don't know all this stuff. So why does it matter for what their actions, whether or not their actions were justifiable or not? And why don't we ask that question instead of feeding into the feeding frenzy of someone like a Laquan McDonald destroying their character and their memory? And this is not to say that this is not to say that, that they have to be, that basically the attitude is a perfect model citizen, then they deserved it. And even if they were a quote unquote perfect model citizen, they'll still find some way to try to defame their character, post-mortem. And that's a problem. So the judge, like I said, rightfully so, decided that the lawyers would not be able to have access to and the files, because at one point, Laquan was awarded the state. There's some information that pertains to potential mental health issues. There's like a whole host of things in there. And the argument was that in order to mount a proper defense of self-defense or defense of another, that they needed this information about Laquan. But it's impermissible character evidence. The cop, this is why I have such a problem with the defense of these cases. So this was promising in the way, well, not promising, but it was good that the judge did handle this way and did not give the defense like any type of impermissible, use of information to try and justify this slaughter. His mother, Laquan's mother, her lawyer also argued against the defense's ability to use this information because, like I said, it's not relevant. A lot of times it's information that they try to seek or they try to use in terms of the deceased person. It's not relevant. It has nothing to do with the actual, shooting anyway. And I mean, I mean, Laquan, it's like, we see so many examples of the justice system of, bending over backwards to protect a defendant, in these police cases. Whereas, I think State's Attorney Mosby talked about this. Marilyn Mosby talked about this, during a press conference after she dropped the rest of the charges in the Freddie Gray line of cases. That she saw the type of cooperation with police and defendants that she had never seen before. And I think we see that in a lot of cases where prosecutors will even act as if they're defense attorneys. They're going out of their way to find a way to clear these officers instead of holding them accountable under existing laws, practices, and procedures. And as we're talking about having that conversation and building out, like, how do we start really turning the tide and putting an end to these unjust, unlawful killings? I mean, that's another level to it. Holding people accountable in the process, holding prosecutors, finding a way to hold prosecutors and judges accountable in the process. So seeing that the Cook County judge in this case actually did deny this request from the defense attorney, that was, and it didn't seem like, I mean, there's no real precedent to allow the defendant to get this information either, right? It's not, like I said, it's not relevant, has nothing to do with the incident itself. It's not connected. So yeah, that was something else that was going on. And then, so some other things that kind of happened this week that we haven't really gotten to, just kind of give you guys a little wrap up for a little bit. So apparently, there was an election this week, some primaries this week. Some pretty cool people, ran for office. Apparently, Bernie Kratz kind of cleaned up the other night. There were 4 Bernie Sanders endorsed candidates: Keith Ellison, Feingold, Zuckerman, and Pearson, and they all won their elections. So there's power, in standing behind candidates they believe in. Also, there's the sister from Minnesota, that Somali sister who won her race. Phenomenal. And fun fact about that race was one of the young women who volunteered for her, right, was the young woman, if you remember when Hillary Clinton was in the Minnesota coffee shop and the young woman approached her and Hillary Clinton was very dismissive and she was like, well, why don't you go run for something? Well, what came out of the exchange was the young woman was like, well, I'm already working with someone. And she was volunteering for the sister the Somali sister who won the primary state house seat in Minnesota. So we now have Tim Canova coming up at the end of the month. If you can phone bank, if you can donate. I'm not telling you to donate because I can't actually tell you to donate, but do what you feel is possible. But if you can phone bank, if you're in the area or you can get to the area and you can go canvas, we need to get the word out about Tim. We need Debbie Wasserman Schultz needs to go. She needs to go. That's not the end all be all. There's still going to be issues regardless, but she needs to go. Yeah, y'all remember that? It was kind of sweet when she lost Minnesota after that had happened. But she has a history of being dismissive towards women, particularly women of color who don't lie down for her, as we saw with the treatment of Nina Turner at the Democratic National Convention. But we see that there are countless people who ran. Bruce Frank Jr. in Missouri actually lost his race. I think it was less than 100 votes. And he's actually pulling money together now for a recount because it was just so close. And, in local races, I mean, this is why getting out the vote, that face-to-face talking to people really does matter. Elections are really won or lost here in the summertime because it's these primary races that really make the difference in terms of, do we have the best candidate going forward into the general election? And in some cases we do, but in some cases, candidates who really should be the ones, shout out to Christy Matthews. Christy Matthews, unfortunately, did not win. She is, I believe Christy's, if not the youngest, she's one of our youngest Bernie Kratz. You guys may remember Christy from the Millennial Roundtable I did a couple months back with Peter Jacobs and a couple other folks. And well, actually, Arizona's voting by mail now. But Athena Salzman and her Clean Elections team, she has two running mates. They are running right now too. So if you're in the 26th district, legislative district in Arizona, that is definitely look out for the Clean Election slate that Athena Salzman's on. That is another race to watch, I think, because they have the opportunity to turn at least their Senate blue, like at least the Senate blue, if they can pick up. I think it's 2 more seats. It is. But there's some really great stuff going on. And what we see, we've learned a lot, but as we push forward, looking at brand new Congress, our revolution being started by Bernie Sanders, other initiatives going on locally, if we get behind good people, if we do the work, we get out the vote, and we get people engaged in the process, we will begin to see the tide turn in our favor. If we engage people, we had when Bernie's standing behind people, it's making a huge difference. You see now those Democrats who are coming to him like, oh, can you come campaign for us? These people spent all this time deriding him, trying to force him to drop out, but now all of a sudden they want him to campaign for them because they see what he can do. They see what we can do. Because like I tell you guys, Bernie's influence is great, but Bernie was made so much more powerful because of all of us who got behind him. You get behind good candidates, you support good candidates, and they will win. It sounds really easy, and yeah, Citizens United. I know all about the Koch brothers and this person and this entity. We have the pharmaceutical lobby has been dumping money into Congress, and we just saw today that the DEA has refused to remove marijuana from the federal controlled substances list. They've loosened the reins a little bit in terms of medical research involving marijuana, but they haven't gone far enough. Medical marijuana is still a frustrating process here in the United States, and Congress needs to act. So we need to be mobilizing and getting behind candidates that will address the issues that are directly affecting the American public, and not just waiting for pompous bureaucrats like over at the DEA research available that medical marijuana has any valid, benefits, or that there could be side effects that we don't know about. You mean like the drugs that have the commercials and the side effects they list are way actual? Like you have worse side effects for medications, and you have to take medications for the side effects, and then the medications taken for the side effects give you side effects, and so on and so on and so on. Like we need proof like that. Like, it's just the weakest explanations going on right now. So I need you to be engaged. I need you to help go get like 5 people. Can you get 5 people? Get them engaged in the process too. And then we can continue this conversation of what does engagement look like? What can you contribute to the process? And how are we going to get good people in office? And not just good is, a very generic term, but how are we going to get hardworking progressives who are willing to take a stand and actually address the issues that are affecting the American public? We see in California now, folks are looking at enacting, and I mean, people have already been doing this, but it's more widespread, right? Because there's a bug. We keep talking about this. This is a movement. There's like a lot going on. We need to continue to build on it and capitalize and keep this going longer term. Because we really do have the possibility. We may not have, the millions and billions, but we do have the power of independent media. We have the power of the people. We have you, right? So with you, I know that we're going to make a way, that we are really going to push forward, and things will be well. So the last thing that I guess got dropped in the screen was I don't know if everybody saw about Google, basically removing Palestine from its maps, and it just says, you type in Palestine, it just says Israel. Like I said, we need to hold people accountable. We need to move together, and we need to stick as close as possible. That doesn't mean that everybody has to vote for the same person or do the same exact thing, but there are movements, there are issues, and we need to coalesce around them and really start driving, home for practical application. So this is Anoa Changa, standing in for Benjamin Dixon on the Benjamin Dixon Show. You can catch me Tuesday nights on the way with Anoa at 8 p.m. You could also cast versions of my episodes on iTunes, Google Play, Player FM, Stitcher, and like, subscribe, please share, and help grow the channel. Ben does such awesome work for all of us. Let's give him some love. Check out the Patreon because, I mean, Ben brings great content 4 nights a week. He travels away from his family and his kids to give you great content, to give us, help build out this platform for all of us. So, let's show Ben some love. All right. Talk to you guys later. Peace.
The Benjamin Dixon Show is only possible with listener support. Go to www.thebenjamindixonshow.com to register for our blog, join the Progressive Army, and support The Benjamin Dixon Show.
It's Ben Dixon.
If you like this episode, be sure to share, like, and subscribe.
Consider becoming a Patreon. Go to www.patreon.com/The BPD Show and support The Benjamin Dixon Show.